Are you ready?
Wait, we're not.
We're not ready. Hold on. Don't worry, I'm going to talk for a couple minutes. You have time. So, we've been studying Shakespeare this winter for about 6 weeks, 7, 8 weeks maybe even. And we've been doing Shakespeare at middle school for like 20 years. It was something that was handed down to me by Dave Pratt, and then I've been doing it now for about 12 or 13 years. And so the question always becomes, why Shakespeare? I know you guys have all asked me, why Shakespeare? Why are we studying this guy who wrote over 400 years ago? So I was thinking about that. Why Shakespeare? And here's what I came up with. First of all, we are constantly quoting Shakespeare and we don't even know it. He has written so many of our commonly used phrases. He first originated them, and he coined over 1,700 words. I wrote a few down with the help of Google. Too much of a good thing, Shakespeare. Wear one's heart on one's sleeve, Shakespeare. The wild goose chase, the devil incarnate, eaten me out of house and home, Shakespeare. Fair play, a laughingstock in a pickle. This is my favorite, most ironic one. It's Greek to me. Brave New World and Break the Ice, just to name a few. Think about the words that he coined. Again, 1,700, according on your sources. Admirable, auspicious, baseless, barefaced, belongings, hostile. Dawn, literally, the dawn, Shakespeare. Lonely, watchdog, bedroom, eyeball. Hurry, gossip. Coined that word, gossip. Jaded, fashionable, nervy, rant, varied, worthless, and zany. So as a result, when you study Shakespeare, you're studying the most influential person on the English language in all of history, really. The single most important person. And then also, why Shakespeare? Because all of our stories have some root somewhere, at least in the Western tradition, in Shakespeare. Right? The universal themes, the universal characters. You have characters of forbidden love, right? Teenagers who are desperately in love and forbidden. We have a good man turned evil by ambition, Shakespeare. We've got a father who has to decide how to distribute his wealth between his children, also Shakespeare. And it's the combination of these two things, universal themes and characters and their experiences, and the language, which I think gives it the most power, because he is put into words something that we all experience at some point in our lives. And he puts them in such eloquence that they can't help but still be there when everything else kind of washes away. A couple of examples of what I mean. To understand difficulty in our lives, he gives us adversity's sweet milk, philosophy. To understand love, he shows us how silver sweet sound lovers' tongues by night, like softest music to attending ears. To understand how it's important to be in nature, he says the earth has music for those who listen. To understand expectation, he says expectation is at the heart, or is at the root of all heartache. Expectation is at the root of all heartache. And finally, to understand wisdom, he says, a fool thinks himself to be wise, but a wise man knows himself to be a fool. So that, to me, is why Shakespeare. And I challenge you, any of you, to think about and argue for something that you've read, watched, seen, whatever it is, listened to, that you think that people will be listening to 400 years from now. It's hard to do. I can't think of anything. It was written in the last 10 years. Okay, that's my theory. Some thanks, right? We gotta say thanks. First person we gotta say thanks to is Miss Jen Gamble, right over here on the corner. Thank you, Jen. Jen, Cliff's mom, aka, is responsible for putting this whole set together for us. She designed it. Richard Wilkie did the canvas, but all the hard work was done, and the design and all this by Jen. She's also worked individually with students on how to bring out the best of their chosen soliloquies. This is all chosen by the kids. So thank you, Jen. Thank you. Yeah, really.
Thank all you guys. It's super fun.
A big thank you to David TL. He's behind the camera right now. Yeah, David. He brings his expertise to us and makes it so you all can be at home watching this performance, because it can't be here. Unfortunately, we wish you were. And then the last person I have, well, second to last person I have to thank is Dory. Come on out, Dory. Dory does all our costuming. So everything you see here is from Dory's, I gotta stay away from you, personal collection. And we're just so thankful. Dory and I have been working together again for, I think, 12 or 13 years. So it's pretty,
something like that.
It's pretty fun.
I lost count.
It's all good.
Thank you all. It was wonderful. A pleasure to work with you all. And you did great. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and the last people I have to thank are you, the students. You guys. This is a challenging thing. I mean, let's face it. I was, over the last 13, 20 years, no group of middle school students has memorized this many lines. None. Like zero. Okay? So the fact that you all have memorized 20, 25, 55, whatever, however many lines you have, puts you all far and above, as a group, the most memorized group of students ever. It's pretty awesome. Not only that, but in a play, you have options. Oh, I'm not really an actor, so I'm just going to stand over here and be a soldier. Right? You can't do that. With a monologue, you are the only one here. There is nowhere to hide. So, in my mind, that is the most courageous thing that all of you, who I know are not professional actors, who probably don't even like acting, are willing to stand up here and deliver. So that, to me, is also why I'm thanking you. Today is a celebration, okay? The grade's done, you know. You all get A+ today, no matter what happens. I don't care, okay? Literally, you all get A+. Really, today is about a celebration of your work and of each other's work, and, you know, have some fun, show off what you've done. Okay, without further ado, I give you Shakespeare.
In Shakespeare's heart-wrenching tragedy, Sargeant, a wounded warrior, regals the intense battle between the merciless MacDonald and the valiant hero Macbeth. As MacDonald prepares to take over Scotland, Macbeth and his fearless army strike them down with a mighty force.
Doubtful it stood, as two spent swimmers that do cling together and choke their art, the merciless MacDonald, worthy to be a rebel, for to that the multiplying villainies of nature do swarm upon him from the western isles. Of kerns and gallow glasses are supplied, and fortune on his damned quarrel smiling, showed like a rebel's whore, but all's too weak. For brave Macbeth, well, he deserves that name, disdaining fortune with his brandished steel, that smoked with bloody execution. Like Valor's minion carved out his passage till he faced the slave, which ne'er shook hands nor bade farewell to him, till he unseamed him from the nave to the chaps, and fixed his head upon our battlements.
O valiant cousin, worthy gentleman,
As whence the sun gins his reflection, shipwrecking storms and direful thunders break, so from that spring whence comfort seemed to come, but discomfort swells. Mark, King of Scotland, mark, no sooner justice had with valor armed, compelled these skipping kerns to trust their heels. The Norwegian lord, surveying vantage, with furbished arms and new supplies of men, began a fresh assault.
this made not this our captains Macbeth and Banquo?
Yes, as sparrow eagles, or the hare, the lion. If I say sooth, I must report as they were cannons, overcharged with double cracks as they doubly redoubled strokes upon the enemy, except they made to bathe in reeking wounds or memorized another Golgotha. Yet I cannot tell, but I am faint. My gashes cry for help.
In the beginning of Hamlet, King Hamlet is murdered by his brother Claudius for his crown, and his son Hamlet falls into a state of depression. When Claudius overhears that Hamlet may be in love with his daughter, Ophelia, he decides to spy on them in conversation. Hamlet enters a room and delivers one of the most famous speeches in literature about the prospect of suicide, unaware that Claudius is hiding in the shadows, while Ophelia pretends to read a book.
To be that is the question, whether 'tis nobler in the mind to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, or to take arms against the sea of troubles, and by opposing in them to die to sleep. No more and by sleep to say we end the heartache and the thousand natural shocks that flushes air to the consummation, the bat let it be wished to die to sleep, perchance to dream. Aye, there is the rub, for in that sleep of death what dreams may come, when we have shuffled off this mortal coil must give us pause. There is the respect that makes calamity of so long life. For who would bear the whips and scorns of time, the oppressors wrong, the tribunes continually, the pangs of despised love, the law's delay, the insolence of office and the spurring, that patient merit of the unworthy takes, when he himself might his quietus make. To grunt and sweat under a weary life, but that the dread of something after death. The undiscovered country from whose bourne no traveller returns puzzles the will, and makes us rather bear those ills we have than fly to others that we know not of. Thus conscience does make cowards of us all, and thus the native hue of resolution is sickly at o'er with the pale cast of thought, and enterprises of great pith and moment. With this regard their currents turn awry, and loosen the aim of action. Soft ye now, the fair Ophelia, nymph in thy raisins, be all my sins remembered.
Yeah! Good job, Diane! Nice job! Nice job.
Great job.
Move up. And stand. Stand. We don't want to have all that.
In Act 3, Scene 2 of Shakespeare's morbid play, Richard II, Richard has just come back from a war in Ireland to find his well-liked cousin, Henry Bolingbroke, has taken over his kingdom of England. All his previous subjects have turned to support Bolingbroke, and his ally kings were all assassinated or overthrown. The following soliloquy exemplifies Richard II's despair when he realizes that there is no hope for regaining his kingdom.
No matter where, comfort no man speak. Let's talk of graves, of worms, and epitaphs. Make dust our paper, and with rainy eyes write sorrows on the bosom of the earth. Let's choose executors and talk of wills, and yet not so, for what can we bequeath save our deposed bodies to the ground? Our lands, our lives, and all are Bolingbroke's, and nothing can we call our own but death, and that small model of the barren earth which serves as paste and cover to our bones. For God's sake, let us sit upon the ground and tell sad stories of the death of kings, how some have been deposed, some slain in war, some haunted by the ghosts they have deposed, all murdered, for within the hollow crown that rounds the moral temples of a king keeps death his court, and there the antic sits.
Great job.
In Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet, Romeo has just killed Tybalt and arrives at Friar Lawrence's cell, where he is informed of his banishment from Verona. However, Romeo is appalled by this news because he cannot imagine a life himself living where Juliet is not. Instead of mourning with him, Friar Lawrence is shocked by Romeo's reaction because the punishment from the prince could have easily been death. Romeo then pulls his dagger and threatens to kill himself.
thy desperate hand. Art thou a man? Thy form cries out thou art. Thy tears are womanish. Thy wild acts denote the unreasonable fury of a beast. Unseemly woman in a seeming man, and ill-beseeming beast in seeming both. Thou hast amazed me. By my holy order I thought thy disposition better tempered. Hast thou slain Tybalt? Wilt thou slay thyself, and slay thy lady that in thy life lives, by doing damned hate upon thyself? Why railest thou on thy birth? The heaven and earth? Since birth and heaven and earth all three do meet. In thee at once, which thou at once wouldst lose, fie, thou shamest thy shape, thy love, thy wit, which like a usurer avouchest in all, and usest none in that true use indeed, which should bedeck thy shape, thy love, thy wit. Thy noble shape is but a form of wax, digressing from the valor of man. Thy dear love sworn, but hollow perjury. Thy wit, that ornament to shape and love, misshapen in the conduct of them both. Like powder in a skilless soldier's flask, is set afire by thine own ignorance, and thou dismembered with thine own defense. What roused thee, man? Thy Juliet is alive, for whose dear sake thou wast but lately dead. There, art thou happy? Tybalt would kill thee, but thou slewest Tybalt. There, art thou happy? The law that threatened death becomes thy friend and turns it to exile. There, art thou happy? A pack of blessings light upon thy back. Happiness courts thee in her best array, but like a mishaved and sullen wench thou pouts upon thy fortune and thy love. Take heed, for such die miserable. Go, get thee to thy love as was decreed. Ascend her chamber, hence, and comfort her. But look, thou stay not till the watch be set, for then thou canst not pass to Mantua, where thou shalt live till we can find a time to blaze your marriage, reconcile your friends, beg pardon of the prince, and call thee back with 1,000 times more joy than thou wentst forth in lamentation. Go before, nurse, commend me to thy lady, and bid her hasten all the house to bed, for heavy sorrow makes them apt unto. Romeo is coming.
Probably the most famous.
Mask.
Oh, mask. Sorry.
Probably the most famous of all Western literature. This is the balcony scene from Romeo and Juliet, in which Romeo and Juliet profess their love for each other. Toward the end of their conversation, Juliet realizes how fast things are going. They only met an hour ago, and fears she may be won too easy. Realizing that she wouldn't have poured out her feelings had Romeo not overheard her before she knew he was hiding in the garden. Still, she goes with it, and young love blooms.
Thou knowest the mask of night is on my face, else would a maiden blush bepaint my cheek. For that which thou hast heard me speak tonight, fain would I dwell on form, fain deny. What I've spoke, but farewell compliment. Dost thou love me? I know thou wilt say aye, and I will take thy word. Yet if thou swearest, thou mayest prove false at lovers' perjuries. Then say, Jove laughs, O gentle Romeo, if dost thou love, pronounce it faithfully. Or if thou thinkest I am too quickly won, I'll frown and be perverse and say thee nay. So thou wilt woo, but else not for the world. In true fair Montague I'm too fond, and therefore thou mayest think my behavior light. But trust me, gentlemen, I'll prove more true than those that have more cunning to be strange. I should have been more strange, I must confess, but thou overheardest ere I was ware, and my true love's passion. Therefore pardon me, and not impute this yielding to light love that the dark night has so discovered.
Worked out a bottle of chills. Play is the thing.
In the tragic comedy, The Tempest, Scene 5, Act 1, Prospero calls upon spirits who have helped him on his journey using magic. He passionately describes the spells he has performed, then declares that he will give up his magic after completing his final task. Prospero claims he will destroy his staff and throw his book into the sea.
Ye, elves of hills, brooks, standing lakes, and groves, and ye that on the sands with the printless foot do chase the ebbing Neptune and do fly him when he comes back. You, dummy puppets that by moonshine to the green sour ringlets make whereof the ewe not bites,
and you whose pastime is to make midnight mushrooms that rejoice to hear the solemn curfew, by whose aid, weak masters though ye be, I have bedimmed the noontide sun, called forth the mutinous waves, and twixt the green sea and the azured vault set roaring war. Have I given fire and rifted Jove's stout oak with his own bolt? The strong base promontory have I made shake by the spurs, plucked up the pine and cedar. Graves at my command have waked their sleepers, oped, and let 'em forth. By my so potent art but this rough magic I here abjure. And when I have required some heavenly music, which even now I do, to work mine end upon their senses this airy charm is for, I'll break my staff, bury in certain fathoms in the earth, and deeper than did ever plummet sound, I'll drown my book.
Great job!
Foul.
Act 4, Scene 1. This speech is from the play Romeo and Juliet. When Juliet comes to Friar Lawrence, completely distraught and suicidal. Juliet has been promoted to Paris by her father, so Friar Lawrence formulates a plan that's involving drinking and sleeping potion to fake Juliet's death so that Romeo and Juliet can be together, and assisting her that everything will be fine.
Hold then. Go home. Be merry. Give consent to marry Paris. Wednesday is tomorrow. Tomorrow night look that thou lie alone. Let not thy nurse lie with thee in thy chamber. Take thou this vial. Be then in bed, and its distilled liquor drink thou off. When presently through all thy veins shall run a cold and drowsy humor, for no pulse shall keep his native progress, but surcease. No warmth, no breath shall testify thou livest. The roses in thy lips and cheeks shall fade. To paly ashes thy eyes' windows fall, like death when he shuts up the day of light. Each part deprived of supple government shall stiff and stark and cold appear like death. And in this borrowed likeness of shrunk death thou shalt continue 42 hours, and then awaken as from a pleasant sleep. Now, when the bridegroom in the morning comes to rouse thee from thy bed, there art thou dead. And as the manner of our country is, and thy best robes are covered on thy bier, thou shalt be borne to the same ancient vault where all the kindred of the Capulets lie. In the meantime, against thou shalt awake, shall Romeo by my letters know our drift. And hither shall he come, and he and I will watch thy waking, and that very night shall Romeo bear thee hence to Mantua, and this shall free thee from this present shame, if no inconstant toy nor womanish fear I bate thy valor in the acting it.
In this moment of Romeo and Juliet, Juliet struggles to decide whether or not to consume a vial of temporary death given to her by Friar Lawrence in a desperate act to save her from marrying Paris and reunite her with Romeo, who has been banished to Mantua. She is terrified something will fumble. Maybe the friar plans to kill her intentionally to exonerate himself. Maybe she'll suffocate inside the tomb. Or worse, maybe she'll awaken and find herself surrounded by her ancestor's corpse, including Tybalt, who was slayed just hours before by Romeo and will go insane.
Whoa.
Farewell. God knows when we shall meet again. I have a faint cold fear thrills through my veins that almost freezes up the heat of life. I'll call them back again to comfort me. Nurse, what should she do here? My dismal scene I needs must act alone. Come, vial. What if this mixture do not work at all? Shall I be married then tomorrow morning? No, no. This shall forbid it. Lie thou there. What if it be a poison which the friar subtly hath ministered to have me dead, lest in this marriage he should be dishonored because he married me before to Romeo? I fear it is, and yet methinks it should not, for he hath still been tried a holy man. How if, when I am laid into the tomb, I wake before the time Romeo come to redeem me? There's a fearful point. Shall I not then be stifled in the vault to whose foul mouth no health may breathe in, and there die strangled ere my Romeo comes? Or, if I live, is it not very like the horrible conceit of death and night, together with the terror of the place, as in a vault, an ancient receptacle,
where, for these many hundred years, the bones of all my buried ancestors are packed, where bloody Tybalt, yet but green in earth, lies festering in his shrouds, where, as they say, at some hours in the night, spirits resort. Alack, alack, is it not like that, I, so early waking with what loathsome smells, in shrieks like mandrakes torn out of the earth, that living mortals hearing them run mad. Oh, if I wake, shall I not be distraught, environed with all these hideous fears, and madly play with my forefather's joint, and pluck the mangled Tybalt from his shroud, and, in this rage, with some great kinsman's bone, as with the club, dash out my desperate brains? Oh, look, methinks I see my cousin's ghost, seeking out Romeo that did spit his body upon a rapier's point. Stay, Tybalt, stay! Romeo, I come, this do I drink to thee.
This is the famous soliloquy from the play As You Like It. It is called All the World's a Stage, and it is one of Shakespeare's most famous speeches. It is performed by Jacques, and it is about the 7 stages of a man.
All the world's a stage, and all the men and women merely players. They have their exits and their entrances, and one man in his time plays many parts, his acts being 7 ages. First, the infant, mewling and puking in the nurse's arms, and then the whining schoolboy with the satchel and shining morning face, creeping like snail unwillingly to school. And then the lover, sighing like furnace with a woeful ballad made to his mistress's eyebrow. And then a soldier, full of strange oaths, bearded like the pard, jealous in honor, sudden and quick in quarrel, seeking to bubble reputation, even in the cannon's mouth. And then the justice, in fair round belly, with good cape and line, eyes severe, and beard of formal cut, full of wise saws and modern instances, and so he plays his part. The 6th age shifts into the lean and slippered pantaloon, with spectacles on nose and pouch on side, his youthful hose well saved, a world too wide for his shrunk shank and big manly voice, turning again towards childish trouble. Last scene of all that ends this strange eventful history is second childishness and near oblivion. Saul's teeth, Saul's eyes, Saul's taste, Saul's everything.
Good job. Good job. Right on, Jamish.
In this scene of Romeo and Juliet, Juliet waits for night to come so that Romeo will come to her, untalked of and unseen. While she's waiting, the nurse rushes in with the news of Romeo and Tybalt's fight. She stumbles on her words, making Juliet believe Romeo and Tybalt are both dead. When she's finally able to correct the misunderstanding, she tells Juliet that Romeo is banished because he killed Tybalt. Juliet grows angry at Romeo, but instantly regrets what she says about him, for she is blaming the husband she loves more than anything, and eventually sides with him over her own family.
I speak ill of him that is my husband. Ah, poor my lord, what tongue shall smooth thy name, when I, thy 3 hours wife, have mingled it? But wherefore, villain, didst thou kill my cousin? That villain cousin would have killed my husband. Back, foolish tears, back to your native spring. Your tributary drops belong to woe, which you mistaking offer up to joy. My husband lives, that Tybalt would have slain, and Tybalt's dead, that would have slain my husband. All this is comfort, wherefore weep I then? Some word there was, worser than Tybalt's death, that murdered me, I would forget it fain. But oh, it presses to my memory, like damned guilty deeds to sinners' minds. Tybalt is dead, and Romeo is banished. That banished, that one word banished, hath slain 10,000 Tybalts. Tybalt's death was woe enough if it had ended there, or if sour woe delights in fellowship, and easily will be ranked with other griefs. Why followed not when she said Tybalt's dead, thy father, or thy mother? Nay, or both, which modern lamentations might have moved. But with a rearward following Tybalt's death, Romeo is banished.
To speak that word is father, mother, Tybalt, Romeo, Juliet, all slain, all dead. Romeo is banished. There is no end, no limit, measure, bound in that word's death. No words can that woe sound.
Now we're going. This is the quote from Act 1, Scene 1 in Romeo and Juliet, where the prince is reminding the Montagues and the Capulets about how their chaos and feud over each other has made Verona's citizens choose war. He is mad because he's not only reminding them for the first time, but the third, and is threatening them that if this ever happens again, they shall pay with their lives.
Rebellious subjects, enemies of the peace, profaners of this neighbor-stained steel, will they not hear? What ho, you men, you beasts, that quench the fire of your pernicious rage with purple founts issuing from your veins. On pain of torture from those bloody hands, throw your mistempered weapons to the ground, and hear the sentence of your moved prince. 3 civil brawls, bred of an airy word by the old Capulet and Montague, have thrice disturbed the quiet of our streets, and made Verona's ancient citizens cast by their graves beseeming ornaments, and wield old partons in hands as old, cankered with peace, to part your cankered hate. If ever you disturb our streets again, your lives shall pay the forfeit of this peace. For this time all the rest depart away. You Capulet shall go along with me, and Montague, you come you this afternoon to know our further pleasure in this case. To old Freetown our common judgment place. Once more, on pain of death, all men depart.
In the tragedy of Romeo and Juliet, Romeo is talking to Benvolio and Mercutio about a dream he had on their way to a party. In response, Mercutio tells Romeo of a dream he had that dreams always lie. He begins telling them of Queen Mab, the dream fairy, who leads people to their dark desires. Mercutio believes that dreams are nothing but a vain fantasy, but speaks about them and Queen Mab passionately.
Oh, then I see Queen Mab hath been with you. She is the fairy's midwife, and she comes in shape no bigger than an agate stone on the forefinger of an alderman, drawn with a team of little Tommies over men's noses as they lie asleep. Her wagon spokes made of long spinner's legs, the covers of the wings of grasshoppers, her traces of the smallest spider webs, her collars of the moonshine's watery beams, her whip a cricket's bone, the lash of film. Her wagoner, a small gray-coated gnat, not half so big as a round little worm pricked from the lazy finger of a maid. Her chariot is an empty hazelnut, made by the joiner squirrel or old grub. Time out, oh mine, the fairy's coachmakers, and in the state she gallops night by night, through lovers' brains, and then they dream of love. On courtiers' knees, who dream on curtsies straight, or lawyers' fingers, who straight dream on fees, or ladies' lips, who straight on kisses dream, which oft the angry Mab with blisters plague, because their breaths with sweetmeats tainted are. And sometimes she gallops o'er a courtier's nose, and then dreams he of smelling out a suit. And sometimes she comes with a tithe pig's tail, tickling a parson's nose as he lies asleep, and then dreams he of another benefice. And sometimes she driveth o'er a soldier's neck, and then dreams he of cutting foreign throats, of breeches, ambuscados, Spanish blades, of hells 5 fathom deep, and then anon drums in his ear at which he starts and wakes, and being thus frightened, swears a prayer or two and sleeps again. This is the very Mab that plats the manes of horses in the night, and bakes the elf locks in foul, sluttish hairs, which, once untangled, much misfortune bodes. This is the hag, when maids lie on their backs, presses them and learns them first to bear, making them women of good carriage. This is she!
Dang.
Great job.
In the framed tragedy Macbeth, Lady Macbeth reads a letter she has received from Macbeth. The letter announces Macbeth's promotion to the Thraneship of Cawdor and details his meetings with the prophetic witches, who have predicted Macbeth's rise to not only the Thaneship but also the kingship. Lady Macbeth knows Macbeth is ambitious, but fears he is too weak to make the prophecy come true. As she awaits her husband's arrival, she resolves to put her natural femininity aside so that she can do the bloody deeds that are necessary to steal the crown from King Duncan, allowing for her and Macbeth's deceitful ascendancy to the throne of Scotland.
They met me in the day of success, and I have learned by the perfectest report they have more in them than mortal knowledge. When I burned and desired to question them further, they made themselves air into which they vanished. While as I stood wrapped in the wonder of it, came missives from the king, who all hailed me Thane of Cawdor, by which title before these weird sisters saluted me, and referred me to the coming on of time with Hail King that shalt be. Yes, I have thought good to deliver thee, my dearest partner of greatness, that thou mightest not lose the dues of rejoicing by being ignorant of what greatness is promised thee. Lay it to thy heart, and farewell. Glamis thou art, and Cawdor, and shalt be what thou art promised, yet I do fear thy nature. It is too full of the milk of human kindness to catch the nearest way. Thou wouldst be great, art not without ambition, but without the illness that should attend it. What thou wouldest highly, that wouldest thou wholly. Wouldst not play false, and yet wouldst wrongly win. Thou'st have, great Glamis, that which cries, thus thou must do if thou have it, and that which rather thou dost fear to do than wishes should be undone. Hie thee hither, that I may pour my spirits in thine ear, and chastise with the valor of my tongue all that impedes thee from the golden round, which fate and metaphysical aid doth seem to have thee crowned withal. The raven himself is hoarse, that croaks the fatal entrance of Duncan under my battlements. Come, you spirits that intend on mortal thoughts, unsex me here, and fill me from the crown to the toe top full of direst cruelty, make thick my blood. Stop up the access and passage to remorse, that no compunctious visitings of nature shake my fell purpose, nor keep the peace between the effect of it. Come to my woman's breast, and take my milk for gall, you murdering ministers, wherever in your sightless substances you wait on nature's mischief. Come, thick night, and pall thee in the dunnest smoke of hell, that my keen knife see not the wound it makes, nor heaven peep through the blanket of the dark to cry, hold! Hold!
And that is our show. Thank you for watching. Great job, everybody. Yeah! All right, thank you. Wow. Wow.